Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is, honestly, genuinely terrifying: organized psychological subversion. We're going to start by looking at a deeply unsettling modern phenomenon, one you might have actually stumbled across online, and then we'll trace it all the way back to a meticulously documented historical blueprint. Because it isn't just about that creepy feeling of being watched. It's about the systemic weaponization of reality itself.
So we have to start by unpacking a growing internet phenomenon known as gang stalking. If you've spent any time looking into this online, you've probably seen thousands of people describing an experience where they feel like the victims of a massive, coordinated, totally invisible campaign designed to destroy their lives. They claim they're being followed, harassed, and gaslit by just ordinary people around them. Now, sure, it's super easy to just write this off as severe paranoia, but what if your paranoia wasn't just in your head? To really grasp the raw emotional weight of this, let's look at a quote from a YouTube creator who's actually discussed their own experience with gang stalking. They describe this harassment as feeling almost demonic, straight up comparing it to biblical tales of persecution. They point to King Saul obsessively spying on David, or the story of Job, right, where Satan tests a man through orchestrated isolation, literally stripping away his wealth, his livestock, and his children. This creator notes that gang stalking victims feel that exact same profound, manufactured isolation today.
To make sense of all of this, here is our agenda for today. 1. The modern gang stalking phenomenon. 2. Zersetzung, the silent weapon. 3. Mechanics of psychological sabotage. 4. The invisible human toll. And finally, 5. Subversion in the digital age. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The modern gang stalking phenomenon. Now, while a lot of medical professionals dismiss modern claims of gang stalking as a manifestation of mental illness, what's truly fascinating here is that the specific tactics described by these victims all across the globe are just shockingly consistent.
What's really striking is the precise nature of these claims. Victims aren't usually reporting, violent physical attacks. Instead, the sources outline an incredibly insidious pattern. They describe intruders subtly moving objects in their homes, but without actually stealing anything. They report social sabotage, where these invisible networks just ruin their relationships and their jobs. And the ultimate goal of all this psychological torture? To purposely provoke an unstable reaction. The perpetrators essentially want the target to look crazy, so that the authorities will step in and completely dismiss them.
Which brings us to Section 2, Zersetzung, the silent weapon. See, whether you personally believe these modern internet claims of gang stalking or not, history gives us absolute, documented proof that these exact methods of psychological torture are very real. In fact, they were once the official, highly funded doctrine of a sovereign state.
Enter the concept of Zersetzung. It's a German term, and it roughly translates to decomposition or corrosion. Back in the 20th century, the East German Ministry for State Security, which most of us know as the Stasi, actually weaponized this concept. This was a massive paradigm shift in authoritarian control. Instead of waiting for a citizen to commit a crime against the state, the Stasi used Zersetzung to preemptively paralyze dissidents. They used invisible psychological warfare to slowly, methodically break down a person's psyche. To understand why they did this, we have to look at the regime change. During the earlier Ulbricht era of East Germany, control was maintained through overt terror. We're talking mass arrests and physical violence. But by the 1970s, under Erich Honecker, East Germany really wanted international recognition and economic legitimacy. Basically, blatant brutality was just bad for PR. So they completely shifted gears to silent repression. The state essentially acted as a malevolent, unseen god, hiding all of its destruction behind this perfect, pristine facade of social normality. And this evolution happened remarkably fast. In 1971, we see that initial shift to silent repression. Then, by 1976, the Stasi's College of Law actually formalized behavioral science into what they dubbed operational psychology. They issued Directive 176, officially codifying these psychological attacks right into a state manual. And get this, by 1989, this whole system was powered by a massive apparatus of over 91,000 official staff and up to 500,000 civilian informants. Moving to Section 3, Mechanics of Psychological Sabotage. So how exactly did the Stasi decompose a human being? Well, they started by creating what they called a psychogram of their target. They would meticulously study medical records, school reports, and intercepted mail just to find any possible vulnerability, maybe an affair, a criminal history, or even just a minor social quirk. Once they found those anchor points, they launched the most intimate, methodical micro-harassment campaigns imaginable. Agents would literally use master keys to enter a victim's home while they were out at work. But again, they wouldn't steal a thing. Instead, they would rearrange small pieces of furniture. They would swap the victim's regular coffee brand for a completely different one. They'd reset the alarm clock from 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. I mean, just think about the terrifying absurdity of this for a second. A sovereign nation spending tax dollars and mobilizing highly trained agents just to literally move a citizen's socks to a different drawer. The sheer, cruel brilliance of it was that when victims tried to explain what was happening to their friends, it sounded utterly trivial. The state was artificially inducing madness. But they didn't stop at individuals, they targeted entire groups too, like environmentalists or peace activists. Stasi infiltrators would join the group and purposely switch off its efficacy. They would volunteer for critical tasks and then conveniently lose the materials. They'd demand endless, pedantic revisions just to stall any real progress. They'd even weaponize privilege, like granting a random group member a travel permit just to make everyone else super paranoid that that specific member was actually a Stasi spy. The true scale of this operation is honestly hard to even comprehend, but it really comes down to this one number: 60. By 1989, there was one Stasi informant for every 60 East German citizens. Just let that sink in for a second. 1 in 60. The state had penetrated the absolute most intimate spheres of private life. Any friend, any colleague, or even your own spouse could be the one secretly reporting on you. Or, the one moving your socks. Section 4. The invisible human toll. Because Zersetzung operated entirely behind this curtain of manufactured normality, the clinical outcomes for the victims were absolutely devastating. The crucial point here is the psychological fallout. Medical professionals eventually identified a specific condition called Stasi persecution syndrome. Victims suffered from chronic paranoia that could be re-triggered years later by the simplest situational cues. They experienced what's called ontological insecurity, which is basically a fundamental loss of their grip on reality. Severe sleep disturbances, intense social withdrawal, and tragically high suicide rates were shockingly common. And perhaps the most painful part of the whole ordeal, the profound lack of understanding from their own families, who often just assumed they were genuinely losing their minds. The terrifying case of dissident author Jürgen Fuchs illustrates this assault on the human soul perfectly. When Fuchs was arrested, he wasn't just locked up, he was subjected to total, meticulously engineered isolation. The Stasi used a special prison light system in the hallways to ensure he would literally never cross paths with or even see another human being outside of his interrogators. They even fabricated these incredibly complex stories that his own family had abandoned him, all just to break his spirit completely. And yet, after the Berlin Wall fell and Germany reunified, justice was virtually non-existent. Listen to this. Out of roughly 91,000 full-time Stasi officers, over 90,900 went completely unpunished. 32 were given probation. And only a single officer, literally just one person, actually served prison time. Because psychological torture wasn't technically defined as a physical crime in their era, the legal system largely just let the perpetrators walk free. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Subversion in the Digital Age. The Stasi might be gone, and the Berlin Wall might have fallen, but the operational code of Zersetzung absolutely did not disappear. It merely evolved. Now, the Stasi wasn't alone in this. Their methods shared a lot of DNA with other global subversion programs running during the Cold War. In the US, the FBI ran COINTELPRO, which used tactics like badge-jacketing. That's where they'd make genuine activists look like police informants just to destroy groups from the inside out. Meanwhile, the Soviet KGB used active measures, focusing heavily on foreign disinformation. This blueprint of invisible psychological control, it was a global pursuit. Fast forward to today. The transition from paper files to digital footprints allows for totally unprecedented psychological targeting. We are essentially witnessing modern digital decomposition. States and bad actors now use artificial intelligence for digital phenotyping, which means they're creating highly precise psychological profiles of us based entirely on our internet habits. They deploy state-sponsored troll farms for mass harassment, they use deep fakes for digital gaslighting to make people literally doubt their own reality, and they implement social credit systems to silently enforce behavioral compliance. It's exactly what the Stasi dreamed of doing, but now it's automated. The haunting legacy of the Stasi leaves us with a critical warning. In an era where technology can completely automate psychological manipulation and at-scale harassment, we have to ask ourselves a really vital question. As our digital footprints grow, how do we protect our own psychological sovereignty from becoming the ultimate target of unseen forces? Understanding this history isn't just about looking at the past. It is the only way we can defend our minds in the future.